Today's video is sponsored by MaXpeedingRods. They are a fast-paced growing car part manufacturer and supplier. They've been around since 2006, and they make anything between crankshafts, connecting rods, turbochargers, and coilovers, and several other parts. So check out their website, MaXpeedingRods.com. So MaXpeedingRods just sent me a set of their coilovers to do a review on for the Integra GSR that we have. And we've been wanting to lower it for a while, so this is a perfect opportunity. I'm going to do an unboxing, installation, and review on how these things do. So let's get right into it and let's cut this box open. All right, so it looks like they're thanking us for buying it. They're focused on performance. And look at these things, man, they are just sharp. They're labeled with their MaXpeedingRod brand. Focus on performance. These things are anodized red. They should work on pretty much 92 to 2000 Civics, 94 to 01 Integras. These things are fully adjustable. They go, you know, from 1 inch low to about 4 inches lower than stock up here on top. If we pull off this little cap, see how this thing's got a little adjustment knob. That right there will allow us to soften or tighten up the suspension. So if we want it to ride a little stock feeling a little softer, we'll soften it up. If we screw it in, then it'll tighten it up and you're ready to go through the mountains or on a track, or if you just want it to just ride a little stiffer. So that's really awesome. It looks like it came with the brand new nuts that come with it. For this one, to get it to work on the Integra, they actually sent me a set of spacers. It's even got the brackets, just like your factory shocks, for your brake lines up front. And they gave us the tool. This is the spanner wrenches to break loose the locking nuts so we can set this wherever we want to and it won't move. So there's that, and the Allen wrench to adjust the very top up here, so whenever we want to soften or whatever. So we'll always keep these in the car. So those look very sweet. I like how they look. I'm very, excited to see how they perform versus stock suspension. All right, so this is in my driveway. So let's do a measurement. So right now, off of the ground in the front, I'm right at 25 inches on the passenger side. It looks like right at 25 and 1/8 on the driver's side, front. The rear driver's side, I'm at 25, and the rear passenger just under 25. So basically, we're sitting at 25 inches height all the way around. And these are factory wheels, 195, 55, 15. All right, so the tools that we're gonna need for this job is a 19 millimeter, a 17 socket, a 17 wrench, a 14 millimeter socket, a 10 millimeter. If you have an impact, that'd be great. And I'm using a hammer, and I'll show you why about that. Overall, this should be mainly all the tools that we're gonna need for this job, and make sure you have a bottle of water to stay hydrated. All right, so if you've never lifted a car up, there's always a spot under the car where you should be able to lift it from. Once you get your car lifted up where the wheels are off the ground, make sure you find your jack stand points. Put your jack stands underneath and slowly lower it. The first thing I always like to do is I try to shake the car and make sure that's not gonna fall while I'm up underneath it. So now we have the car completely elevated off the ground. So now we can take off the wheels. All right, get your 19 millimeter. I always slide the wheel under the car. So just in case that it falls, at least it has that much supporting it. All right, now with the wheels removed, now we have to get to the upper strut nuts right here, and we're gonna have to remove this strut bar out of the way. So let's go ahead and remove these two 12 millimeters. All right, so typically these are gonna be 14 millimeters up here. Since I've already replaced these with like factory aftermarket, they are a 15. These are a 15 millimeter, but your factory ones are gonna be 14 millimeter. All right, so on the bottom of your strut, you have this fork down here, and you'll see you have a 17 millimeter nut and a 17 millimeter bolt head. We're gonna go ahead and remove that. And then you see there's a pinch bolt right here. That pinch bolt right there is a 14. We're gonna take that off and then knock it down. And so that'll allow this to have enough room to get the strut out of the way. And you also have to make sure you disconnect your brake hose off of here. Put the nut back on and tap it. Now that comes back just a little bit. Unscrew the nut. So what I like to do is I put my wrench that I was just using on here. All right, so you get you a 14 millimeter. Now I'm going to take a hammer and I'm going to tap down on it. The bolts that hold on the bracket for the brake hose. All right, once you remove both of those bolts, now your brake line is free. So now all we have to do is remove the upper up here. Okay, so once we've got those upper removed, now we just need to get this out. So you should be able to pick it back up and bring it out towards the back of the car. All right, so we got the new front. You can tell this is the one for the front because your fork will go right on top of this, and this has your bracket for your brake line. So make sure you go ahead and take off your top mounting nuts. All right, and then put those up top. Now we're gonna feed this up through here. All right, so I got the upper mounting nuts mounted with the still with my my DC strut bar. I'm not going to tighten them all the way up yet. We're going to wait to the very end. So now we can go underneath. So in the kit they threw in these spacers. So this lower fork, it actually has a lot of slop on it because this is made for a Civic, not the Integra. So what we're going to do is we're going to install this spacer first. Let's install this lower fork. Make sure you keep your brake lines out of the way. So what you're going to want to do is give it a twist until you can get it all the way up. Reinstall our pinch bolt. Now you want to reinstall your fork to your lower control arm. All right, so I'm just going to grab it on the bottom part of the lower ball joint. So I've got this raised up and I've got it where the hole's lined up. So now you can reinstall your lower control arm bolt. I always just get it started and tap it on through and start the nut on the other side. What you want to do is you want to preload your suspension. So you want to pick this up until that's picking up on the car and then tighten it down. All right. And now all we got to do is reattach our brake lines. If you open your trunk, you'll see that you got these access panels. You can just pick straight up on them, and that allows you access to the top of the struts. All right, so you can just stick your key up under here, help pick it up. Now you see you have access to the 14 millimeter nuts on top. If you come down below, you have a 14 millimeter bolt to take out, And that's pretty much all you have to do to take out the rears. So let's go ahead and do this. So get you some type of penetrating fluid and spray the bolts really well. So we have a cheaper set of eBay anodized purple lower control arms. We figured we're gonna go ahead and install while we do this. So if you're gonna go ahead and do that as well, you're gonna have to take off. There is two 10 millimeters. There's one right here and one right here. And then you have to take off the sway bar bolt, which is a 14 millimeter, and remove the other 14 millimeter that holds in the control arm. You're gonna bring this around and I'm gonna set it right in there. All right, now we're gonna have to put these up top. All right, so once you got it started up top, now what you wanna do is keep your brake line towards the back of the car. Bring your control arm up and go ahead and start your bolt. Get your bolt started. They don't have a bolt on the back side, so you'll have to make sure you get the right metric nut to match it up with. All right, so if your control arm was seized like mine, you can see how it pulled the entire washer out. I actually had to heat it up with a torch and keep spraying it with some penetrating fluid just to be able to get the bolt to come out without snapping off in it. So just so you know, you might need to have a torch handy when doing this job on these older cars. All right, to set preload, you want to be able to pick up the car. You want to jack it up until it starts picking it up off the jack stand, okay? And do that on both sides, and then tighten up all your bolts. Okay, the reason why you want to put this preload on here before you tighten up the bolts is so it doesn't mess up your bushings, because this will be how the car will typically be sitting on the ground. So the nut that I used on the back right here, since we replaced the control arm and it didn't have a welded nut to the back anymore, was the same factory nut that came off of our factory suspension up top. So I just reused one of those to be able to allow me to have a bolt or a nut on the back side. I have made 0 adjustments so far. I have just left them at what they were set at from the factory. So we need to put the wheels on, and then we'll be able to set it on the ground and see where we're sitting at. All right, go ahead and put the wheels back on. When you put these back down on the ground, make sure you torque them down or in a crisscross pattern to 80 foot-pounds each. So you're probably going to want a low profile jack after you lower your car, because if not, a regular jack might not be able to come out from underneath the car. All right, so without making any adjustments, this is where it sits, just like how they sent it. I haven't done a measurement yet, but I will. But right now, I am loving it. To me, I'm not all about being super slammed. I just want the wheel gap to be gone a little bit. So to me, this is almost perfect. So we'll get the tape measure out. We originally were sitting at 25 inches. Now we're at 23 inches in the front. In the rear, we are sitting at 23 1/4. So right now, from the original height, it is 2 inches lowered. All right, so like I said, these things are adjustable dampening. To actually adjust your dampener, you're going to have to screw this in or out. To tighten it up, you're gonna go in, you're gonna go clockwise. It comes with the little Allen wrench. To soften it up, you wanna go out. These are 24-way adjusting. So you got 24 adjustments. So you'll feel each individual click. All right, so after taking it for a test drive, I noticed that I left one of my bolts a little bit loose right here at the top. So before you go on any test drives, make sure you double check everything is tightened up. All right, so to adjust your height on this, do not do like I did originally. I said, okay, if I want to go up, let's just screw this top nut up and raise the car up. Well, essentially, I messed up by doing that. That is setting your preload. Your preload, what it is how much pressure you already have on your spring. So to adjust the actual height, you have to break loose your bottom nut, and then once this is locked up against here, you can turn this and it'll actually thread into your body down here. So make sure that you do not mess with the top ring up here when you were trying to set your adjustment like I did. Basically, I set a bunch of preload pressure on the spring, which essentially did raise it up, but is incorrect on how you want to set your height. To set preload, you see how this is loose right now? Get it all the way up, hand tight, to where this spring is not moving. All right, spin your bottom one up and just butt it up against there. Now to set your preload, you want to put about 4 to 5 millimeters higher to put your preload on the spring. And essentially, your spanner wrench that they give you is basically 4 to 5 millimeters thick. What we're going to do is we're going to turn this and leave the bottom one alone now and put a gap in it about 4 to 5 millimeters thick. Right there. So now that spanner wrench will actually fit in between that gap right there. So now that preload is set correctly. So now spin the bottom one up and tighten it up. If I want to adjust the height, you're going to break this loose. And now if I want to go up, I'm going to turn this bottom, this one right here, and you can see that it actually is turning the entire body, not the spring itself. It's not adjusting any more gap on this spring thread. Okay, so this is how you're going to set your height. So this is going to be one of those kind of things where you're just going to just keep adjusting it, put your wheel on, put it on the ground, and see what your overall height is. Once you've got it set where you want, take your bottom one and then tighten it and lock it down. All right, guys. So this the MaXpeedingRod coilovers, I'm actually taking them out for a test drive after doing some adjusting, and I reset all my preload. I set the stiffness to all the way stiff, and honestly, they ride pretty good. I drove it down the interstate. It wasn't too springy, too bouncy, not too stiff. Overall, I'm very happy with this. All the way soft, it was really springy to me. It might be different for you, depending on your wheel setup and anything else that might be needing to be replaced. But overall, this the Integra, it's driving really good. It's going through these back roads. The handling is tight, so it takes a corner pretty nicely, and I'm really satisfied with the whole experience so far. I'm sure that if I leave it at the height that it's at and the settings, it should probably last several years or more, depending on the abuse or the amount of time we drive it. But overall, I'm very happy with this, and I definitely give it a thumbs up, and would say I would recommend to my friends to try them out as well, especially for the price. Definitely surprised me. All right, guys, so if you enjoyed this video and you're wanting to get your set of MaXpeedingRod coilovers, I have a discount code in my description link for 15% off. I hope you all enjoyed this, and they definitely get my thumbs up approval. So I hope y'all have a great day and keep on cruising.